If you ask any little kid about his political views will be exactly the same as his parents' political views. So if you ask, for example, a 5-year-old about his political views, they'll be identical to his parents' political views. But here's something interesting. If you ask a teenager, say somebody who's 15 or 16, his political views, that person's political views probably won't be exactly the same as their parents. They might have some similarities, but it's very unlikely that they'll be exactly the same. That's not surprising. As we become teenagers, we enter a stage that's called formal operations, and that means we can use abstract logic. And when you have two adults that can each think logically, they're not going to agree on every single thing. Because that once a person can think logically, they can think for themselves, and two people thinking for themselves will have different views. And this principle we're going to now incorporate into our understanding of the most powerful of all archetypes, the most magnetic of all archetypes. Now, if you look at a hero myth, you'll notice that there's another character besides the hero. That character is called the guide. The guide's job, of course, is to guide the hero. In Harry Potter, Dumbledore is the hero. And then you'll notice something interesting. The guide dies. Now, many people who studied myth have argued that when the guide dies, the hero becomes an adult hero. But they're actually totally wrong. They're close. And it's around that time that the hero goes from being a child hero to an adult hero. But it's not the mere act of the guide dying that achieves it. In fact, something else has to happen. In order for the hero to become the adult hero, he needs to reject and repudiate some fundamental teaching of the guide. Now notice, he's not going to reject and repudiate all the views of the guide. That's what the villain does. For example, in Harry Potter, Voldemort rejects all of the views of Dumbledore. Harry Potter, towards the end, rejects just one of them. This is the process that turns the child hero into the fully realized adult hero. The child hero steps in the unknown, but he doesn't go against the guide. There's always this adult figure. The adult hero, however, stands on his own. He agrees with the guide on many things, but he disagrees with the guide on at least one thing. Now, this again, archetypes are only magnetic if they're universal. In order for something to be appealing to everybody, it needs to be something within themselves that they prize. And if you want something to be repellent to everybody, it needs to be something within themselves that they dislike. Of course, we want to make sure that we're appealing to something within everybody that they prize. And we all prize that independence that we gain as teenagers, where we begin to think for ourselves. Thinking for ourselves is something that's so valuable to every single person. Nobody wants to just be sort of like a parrot of their parents that just believes exactly what they believe without thinking or anything like that. Everybody wants to know that they think for themselves. I like to believe that I think for myself. You probably do. And guess what? Your parents also prize the fact that they don't think exactly identically to their own parents. This is a universal rite of passage for all people. And because of that, this archetype is incredibly appealing. We call this archetype the adult hero. And somebody becomes the adult hero by rejecting and repudiating one view of the guide. Now, you might say, well, why can't it just be when the guide dies? Well, if we look at stories, the rejection and repudiation often does happen basically right after, but sometimes it happens a very long time after. In the TV show Dexter, the guide is Dexter's adopted father. But he's dead before the show even starts. He's already been dead in the first episode of the first season. Dexter doesn't become the adult hero for several seasons of the show. Only when he rejects and repudiates one of the guide's views does he become the adult hero. And so rejecting and repudiating the view of the guide shows the adult hero. It also shows something else. It shows passion. When you don't care about something, you just say, yeah, sure, whatever. You agree with everything. But when you do care about something, you're going to disagree. A rule of thumb that you can use is passion is disagreeing. If you're passionate, you disagree. If you don't care, if you're not passionate, you agree. And the adult hero is so magnetic because he disagrees with at least one view of the guide. Now, the adult hero can also be used to increase believability. Suppose that you want to say that you're really into kite sailing, and you want the admissions officers to believe it. Whether it's true or false is irrelevant right now. Something can be true and not believed. It can be false and believed. I'm only talking right now about believability. So I'm going to give you two examples. Suppose the first person says, the founder of kite sailing says kite sailing is just like surfing. All right. If you then say, now the person has two choices. He can say, the founder of kite sailing says kite sailing is just like surfing, and I totally agree. That person is putting himself in the role of the child. Then somebody else might say, the founder of kite sailing says that kite sailing is just like surfing. He's totally wrong. Let me tell you why. That second person is putting himself in the role of the adult hero. And that second person is the exciting one. He's the more appealing one. And he uses he's using a technique that we call the reversal. A reversal is very, very simple. It's a symbolic act of rejecting and repudiating the guide. It can be done in very fancy ways, but it can also be done really simply just by disagreeing with the prevailing view. Now in the next video, because reversals are so important, we're going to look at some famous examples of reversals. Guess what? These techniques we're talking about, these aren't limited to college essays. These are used in film, in politics, in theology, in poetry, in philosophy. They're used everywhere. And because they're so powerful, they can help people in all different areas. Stand-up comedians, when they start using reversals, will often go from kind of famous to super famous. You'll see great politicians use reversals all the time. Poets use reversals all the time. In the next video, we're going to show how you can start to use reversals so that you can make sure that your application stands out so that you get in.